Struggling to discuss sex and intimacy with your partner?
Not feeling met, seen, or heard in your relationships?
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Andrea. We're two midlife mavericks sharing our own experiences.
Messy AF and no regrets.
With marriage, divorce, polyamory, and pleasure.
We've learned that when you're brave enough to figure out what you want and ask for it,
with partners, friends, family, and most importantly, yourself,
you'll feel more alive and free.
Question everything, especially your mother's advice.
There's no rom-com formula for this, but don't panic.
Being alone matters. Honey, I can't miss you if you don't leave.
What if your breakup could be your breakthrough?
Our podcast is for brave hearts.
Anyone who seeks or has found the courage to confront their fears and limiting beliefs about breaking societal norms in the spirit of finding their truth.
If you're seeking permission to be brave in your relationships
and want to feel less alone along the way, we got you.
I mean, have we had a bad expert interview? Like, everyone's so fucking amazing. Like,
yes.
It's
the
just
great
like,
part. This is Ariana, who is our expert this time. What I loved about her, and in some ways she was like a mirror to me, but she was like the doctor mirror. She has all of the science behind her, all of this training. Yes. And I was like, oh yeah, this is, I relate to everything you're saying, but I learned it through a lived experience, and she did too, but she was coming from a totally different angle. And it was just so affirming to hear her wisdom.
Yeah, it was amazing. She's so real, so creative, so herself, and so unafraid to unabashedly show up, like in all her ways, with the sacred smut, with the sacred sexuality, with the kink, with the dom and the sub.
Yes, but also just with like IFS parts and with addiction and with like honoring all parts of us are good parts, and we just have to navigate some, and some are protecting us in ways that aren't so useful. And so she was, so accepting and inviting.
Open-minded, accepting, inviting, and very articulate. If you are brave hearts, you can build a relationship with yourself that is going to be a relief, not just uncomfortable and hard, but I just felt so much warmth and compassion from her about the process of building a relationship with yourself. And that was really refreshing to me. It put me at ease about digging deeper within. The answers are within. This is awesome.
Yes. And she has a very welcoming way of using like the microdosing as a way in, which I had never heard before. And she called it like intuitive sobriety. And that was also super fascinating. So yes.
Oh my God. You're going to love this. Here it comes. Hi, Bravehearts. Welcome to Permission to be Human. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Janelle.
And we're so glad to be interviewing an expert today about how to build a relationship with yourself.
Today's expert is going to go into a very, very niche and specific category of psychedelics and microdosing.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So we're thrilled to introduce and have Ariana with us today. Welcome, Ariana.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Since 2021, Arianna Macartney has been a naturopathic doctor, psychedelic somatic guide, and priestess of pleasure and play. With a decade of experience in microdosing and plenty of compassion, she helps guide women and gender-expansive beings back into embodying their truth and radiance by clearing the trauma and addictions. Obsessed with sacred sexuality, honoring ancient wisdom, and known for her intuitive sobriety method, can't wait to hear about that. Ariana is also a constant creator, building fairy houses, channeling songs, and writing sacred smut. So good.
Right? Like so many questions I have just from the bio.
Yeah.
Actually, I have all these definition questions, but why don't we just start with sacred smut? Like, what's sacred smut?
I love that we're going here first.
Right?
So last year, like 2 years ago, I really started on my pleasure journey, and it was after my psychedelic somatic therapy training that I really started to, it was within that training and then after that I really started to heal all of the sexual trauma that was in my body. And I was so used to searching for like the trauma and the negative emotions and the charge in my system. And then I stumbled upon sensual embodiment. And I went to a sensual awakening event, and it was the first time that I started to actually feel like the pleasure in my body. And I'm a highly sensitive person, and so we feel the pain 10x and we also feel the pleasure 10x. And it was through that exploration that led me to conscious play parties, and led me to a particular conscious play party at the start of last year, that was all about erotic, like embodying your erotic avatar. And the erotic avatar that I chose to embody for last year was sub, with my pussy as my dom. And so I started this newsletter called the Savor Letters, which I've now have on Substack. But for all of last year, it was just within my email list, and it was a creative space for me to explore and detail like what it was for me to be a sub to my pussy and the journeys that I went on. And a lot of it was sensual, erotic experiences with myself and others, but writing about it in a really poetic, beautiful way. And it definitely, like, that form of writing has come through me before, like looking back to even when I was still using substances. I found my old hard drive, and it was just like this beautiful, smutty story. And so it's been moving through me, but I would say last year I really began to step into that more. And I find so much fun with it, because I find often in like porn or even like fantasizing, it's not super clear. And when you get to just write this like delicious experience, and you get to like turn yourself on through it, and then now I've been sharing it, and my hope is for other people to feel their own erotic energy with it. But yeah, that's been really fun. And the sacred part, right, is that it's, our bodies are so sacred. Our sexuality is so sacred. It's a connection to the divine. And following pussy, like pussy as dom was God as dom, was the goddess as dom, right? And really reconnecting to my self and her as a way to rebuild trust. And I'm kind of going off topic here, but yeah, just really tapping into that creativity and trust there.
What a beautiful way to kick off building a relationship with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. Thank you for describing that whole journey. It's beautiful. And so let's just go through some of the other terms. Can you please define naturopathic?
Yes. So naturopathic medicine is a holistic medicine. It's like the original functional medicine. So a lot of the, we're pretty well aware of what functional medicine is, right? Functional medicine is looking at medicine from a more preventative standpoint. And the roots lie in naturopathic medicine. And naturopathic medicine was birthed from ancient wisdom, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, the old like eclectic practitioners in the 1800s, the homeopaths that really saw the whole person. But it's essentially treating the whole person, using preventative measures versus just treating based off of a diagnosis. And it's really using nature to heal. So naturopathic, naturopathic, using the healing power of nature and really honing in on understanding that we all have the capacity within us to heal. We all have an inner healing force, and it's about clearing the blocks to that healing force, and like bringing more vitality to that healing force, so that our system can heal itself, because it knows how to do that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. What about psychedelic?
A psychedelic medicine is a substance, also called entheogenic, that awakens the spirit and can alter our consciousness, our perception. So it can alter time, the sense of reality, and psychedelics have been used for thousands of years to awaken us to our spirit and really heal the spirit.
Amazing. And examples of psychedelics that you would use are what?
Okay, so examples of psychedelics are mushrooms, but the magical kind of mushrooms, so psilocybin. Another one is LSD. So if you've heard of acid, LSD, ayahuasca is another medicine. DMT is another medicine. If you've heard of Bufo, even cannabis and MDMA can be described as psychedelics, but they're not classical psychedelics. So the psychedelic term is really the term of like opening us up to have an altered state of consciousness where we're having visions of things that are beyond our reality.
Awesome. Beautifully articulated. So what about priestess?
Whew. Have I heard defined priestess before? Okay.
If it's not coming to you, we can just omit it. Like, I mean, obviously we can infer what,
Priestess of pleasure and play to me means that the medicine of pleasure and the medicine of play move through me. And I've really anchored that into a big part of my spiritual practice. And I believe that all of us have an inner priestess. We don't have like a hierarchy, right? But it's for me a almost like a title of this is what I embody is pleasure and play.
Love it. Okay. And finally, sacred sexuality.
So sacred sexuality to me means really honoring our eros and our bodies as a place for the divine to move through our desires, through
Beautiful.
the act of intimacy, the act of pleasure, the act of the act of sex. It gets to be a sacred space that we get to harness that energy to connect with the divine and then really like to fill our lives.
So how would you define a relationship with yourself?
So I define a relationship to the self as a relationship that goes beyond just your singular self, right? It's a relationship to all of the parts of us, our inner child, our inner teenager. Maybe we have multiple different parts of us that are little parts, multiple different parts that are teenagers, our 20-year-old selves, like a relationship to all of that, and a relationship to our body, our mind, and our spirit.
I love that. Yeah, really, really nice. I haven't really thought about it that way, even though it completely makes sense that you're tapping into all the parts of you. So when you say you're talking about these different ages, would you say there are also many different parts that exist within you now at your age that you are?
Totally. And I still have little parts, right? And I still have my inner teenager. And I also have my, my perfectionist part. I have my financial warrior part. Her name's Franny the financial warrior. I have, and I like to name these different parts, right? Because they
love
get
that.
and I have my inner priestess part, right? And even through the menstrual cycle, we go through these different archetypes of the maiden, the mother, the crone, and then the shamanic priestess. And so we are multifaceted beings, especially as women or those with wombs. So it's and it's a beautiful process of getting to know the inner family and getting to heal that inner relationship.
And what you're describing there, Arianna, I know that as IFS. Is that what you're speaking to?
Yeah. So IFS is a process that I use a lot in my practice. IFS is internal family systems, and it is based on this premise that we are not of just this singular mind, that we have these different parts of us, and that there's actually no bad part. They're all here for helping us hold our homeostasis. And Dr. Dick Schwartz, who created this methodology, categorizes our parts into our exiles, our managers or our protectors, and our firefighters. And then in the middle of that, we have our capital S self, or our integrated adult self, which coincides really beautifully with that like inner healing force. It's that soul level part of us that is the kind of the be all end all.
Can you describe how your therapy helps people build a relationship with themselves? Build the bridge for me there. What's the connection?
So with everything that I do, whether it be psychedelics, microdosing, craniosacral therapy, naturopathic medicine, homeopathy, IFS, right? All of these systems are about the client connecting more deeply with themselves and learning how to feel their emotions, learning how to regulate their emotions, learning how to communicate in a more advantageous way with the people that are around them. And it's also all about awakening that inner healing force. Microdosing and psychedelics open up the pathways for that inner healing force to come more deeply online. Yeah. So it kind of, if you can think of like the capital S self, maybe when a person first comes to me, that capital S self, that integrated adult self is like really small within their body, within their heart space, within their womb. And they've got all of these parts that are taking up so much room. Maybe it's their like reactive part, maybe it's their anxious part, maybe it's their like people pleaser part that's like, I need to do everything for everybody. And so those parts are super big, right? Mm-hmm. What microdosing does, what psychedelics do in conjunction with things like homeopathy, things like internal family systems, IFS, it allows space for that S, capital S self to get bigger. Right? So it as it gets bigger and connects with these parts that originally were taking up so much space in the system no longer feel alone. Because a lot of the time when we get hijacked by a part of us that's triggered, by a part of us that's over functioning, like overworking in that mode, it's doing that because it's feeling like I've got to do this because I'm the only one here and I've got to keep Andrea safe. So I'm going to be really big and out in the open and be the driver for Andrea's life. And then with working together, that capital S self gets bigger. And so then that maybe overachiever part gets to feel like, oh,
that helped.
There's an adult here. Like there's this part that I just get to lean into and trust, and that gets to lead. And so it's really beautiful because I think in a lot of traditional therapies, or even in traditional allopathic medicine, there's this idea that like, oh, I need to ask the doctor for what to do with my body. I need to ask my therapist what to do. My therapist knows best. She's got all the training. My doctor knows best. They've got all of the training, right? And in these modalities, it's really about like, no, actually, this capital S self, you have all of the best wisdom within. And so I'm just kind of there, leaned back, facilitating that connection with yourself so that
Beautiful.
You can lead your life. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're touching on a couple things. One is a main theme of that we've been hearing in this series so far is that we do tend to look outside for the solution or for the opinion. And really the answers are all within us. And I think it's hard to believe at first. I was I was originally very resistant to that. I'm just like, no, I don't know for sure. I'm not certain. I'm going to make sure that I go ask a bunch of other people. So I'm hearing that you really can build, the psychedelics actually build relationships within your body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. And if you think about the mycelial network, right? It's all about connection. And even LSD, it builds new neural networks. It builds new connections within the brain. And then when you look on that as at like a macro or more energetic realm side of things, it's helping us build a deeper connection with ourselves, because with psychedelics on board, with microdosing on board, I find that it's so much easier to access that level of compassion for our parts, because we're not like stuck in a part. We're a little bit distant from the part. We're able to observe the part from like this almost third party perspective of, oh, I'm noticing that my overachiever is here, versus like, I am the overachiever and this is all of me.
So it creates there's an observation
Space.
possible.
You have been referring to this healing force energy.
Yeah.
And is there another term for that?
Yeah. So in homeopathy, it's called the vis, VIS. And it is the healing force in the body. It's the organizing force in the body. If you think about our body as like if you just think on the physical level, there's all of these building blocks, right? There's the structure of the house. And the vis, the organizing force of the body, the healing force of the body, is akin to our spirit, is akin to our soul. And if you think about it, it's the roadmap. It is like the director of how the energy is flowing within the system. So a lot of the time, in chronic disease, right? When something isn't healing itself on its own, I often look to that level of the person, because we get a cut. Our body should know how to heal itself, right? And simply giving the body more building blocks, right? That's more so in like functional medicine. You get labs done, you see what's missing, and so you take the hormones or you take the supplements to replace those nutrients. But what if your body doesn't know how to process those nutrients? What if your body doesn't know where to put those building blocks? There can be a misattunement at the level of the vital force, at the level of the vis, at the level of that spirit level. And so using things like psychedelics, things like homeopathy, right? Things like craniosacral therapy, it acts on that level of the body so that it awakens that force so we can heal ourselves.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I'm learning a lot today.
Yeah. Yeah. This is fascinating. So if just to bring it down to this relatable level for our brave hearts, a lot of us have heard of microdosing. I have some microdoses, right in the drawer there that I can use. They're really great, except I don't sleep when I use them. And so they're not really of use to me right now. So if someone wanted to dabble in this and say, oh, I guess microdosing helps me build a relationship with myself and do all the things you just mentioned, is this something they can do on their own, or is this something that they need a therapist or a guide or a facilitator to help them with?
The answer is twofold, because I had my own microdosing journey back in 2015 when I found it on Reddit. Okay, this was back way before microdosing was well known. And I'm like, I'm going to therapy. I'm going to hot yoga. I'm meditating. I'm still depressed. Nothing is working. And I'm like, well, I'm partying with psychedelics. And somebody mentioned something about microdosing. So I'm on Reddit, research it.
Love it.
And I find a protocol. And I followed the protocol that I found on Reddit, which was start on the Fadiman, which is 1 day on, 2 days off. And I looked up like the recommended dosage that they recommended, and I just started on the journey kind of solo, right? And it was really helpful. And I think that everything happened for a reason. And at the same time, my first 6 months into microdosing, I fell deeper into addiction. And at the same time, I was recognizing that I was using all these substances to heal all of my mental health issues. And I was seeking all of the answers outside of myself. And I was going into these deep journal sessions while on the microdose. And I realized that any question that I asked, my inner self had the answer. And so I was like, I have all of the answers within me, and yet I'm seeking the solution from these external sources.
What an aha moment.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And still nothing, wasn't fully clicking until I had the dream. And that summer I was living with my friend who is a pretty heavy crystal meth user. I myself was using speed, which is 90% meth, and GHB 24/7. And one night I had a dream. And in the dream, I saw this dying swan. And she was like squawking and like barely could walk. And it just hit me to my core. And I woke up and I just knew that was my spirit. And that's what I was continuing to do to myself by using the drugs. And that's when I started to follow that spirit calling, that intuitive calling, and really awoke me to that. And over the next couple of years, I got sober intuitively. I let go of the most harmful, most addictive substances first. And as I healed more, it's like the substances just fell away because I was gripping so tightly onto them because they were my lifeline. They were the thing keeping me stable, strong, like connecting me to people, connecting me to my creativity, all of that. And as I found that I had everything within me, they naturally fell away. And so that's the intuitive sobriety process. And I will say that intuitive sobriety process took me, 3 years, probably from like start of microdosing to completion. And I walk that with clients in 3 months now. So you can,
Okay.
I want to empower
Wait a
people.
second. It's like, I was like, fucking amazing. This, Bravehearts, are you getting this? Like this dream that you had is like, this is me. This is what I'm doing. Like that is vivid and powerful. And then I just heard you say, I guess I've heard you say that you have experienced so much of what unintentional psychedelics can do and what intentional psychedelics can do. And you are now taking what took you 3 years with intuitive sobriety down to 3 months with clients.
What I'm actually also hearing too is that, we're probably going to get into like, what are the obstacles that prevent people from building a relationship with themselves? Is that your journey was that you were an addict to, at least to drugs. I don't know if anything else. And that was, you were thinking that was helping you, but this dream showed you that it was actually the thing that was hurting you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and that's a great segue to the next question of like, what else stops people from building a relationship with themselves?
So, so many different things, right? It can be substance use, and it's like substance use isn't even really about the substances, right? It's like what was behind the substances. So for me, that was the unprocessed grief and pain from my childhood. And I think that is the case for a lot of people. And if you're listening, you might resonate with this. I had a tea ceremony the other day, and it was a silent tea ceremony for like an hour and a half. And I was like, whoa, I don't want to sit here in silence for an hour and a half. And around the third cup of tea, as I'm sitting in silence, like all of this grief opened up. And I noticed that we so often don't want to be in silence, and silence connects us to ourselves. And that we say we want to find ourselves, we say we want to be connected to ourselves, but what the reality can look like is actually connecting to all of the grief and the pain that has been building up over weeks of just taking, of just filling our time with so many different things. So it can be overworking. It can be, substances. It can be this addiction to perfectionism. It can be this addiction to like the image that we think that people want from us, or we think that our parents will approve of, or we think if we're a mom, the image that we feel like we need to uphold for our kids. And that whole, and then almost everything goes back to childhood or goes back to some sort of societal cultural programming, right? And I think that we get so scared about connecting with ourselves because another big one is the fear that if we really tapped in, that we would have to blow our entire life up, because what we would find is that I actually don't like this partner. I actually don't like this job. I actually want to live in the mountains in Colombia for a year, right? Like,
too scary.
It can be really, really scary.
I love the spectrum that you gave there. It's like, oh yeah, drugs can be stopping you, big things in life, but it's just really the fear of what you're going to find that stops you potentially the most. A lot of unprocessed grief, sure, but it's uncomfortable to look. And I definitely have experienced this myself. It's just like, oh, I'm not looking at that. Like I'll just keep doing this thing that's kind of uncomfortable, but that's much harder. Which is really part of the reason we decided to do this series in the first place, because Janelle and I have both, struggled and succeeded and struggled and succeeded to build solid relationships with ourselves. And it's not that comfortable.
Something I'd love to add in here is that for me, it has been really uncomfortable, right? Because I've got, through the end of med school and after graduating, I did the artist way and like realized that my artistry is a big part of me. And that desire to sing and express and perform music, like what? Like to open a practice, to like write sacred smut, right? All of that feels so daunting. And when I've looked within, sometimes my own desires scare me. And so I feel like that's actually not it. I don't actually want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And something that was so helpful last year, and a process that I'm still doing, but last year was really like the container of just being sub to my pussy. And it alleviated so much like stress and decision making, because it was just like, if she's a yes for it, I have to do it. If she's a no for it, I don't do it. And so feeling the desires moving through me and just feeling like, all right, like sometimes it feels really good to be dommed, right? Because it is scary to look inside. It is scary to find those desires and actually take those action steps. And so maybe it's not your pussy that's doming you, but maybe you journal and you have your higher self and you channel writing, and it gets to give you directives or give you a plan. I just personally love connecting to the body, to the womb, to the pussy, because we've been so distanced from that. And I find that it's such a direct place to rebuild a relationship, to trusting yourself and to following what actually feels good. Because she's the most, they're the most sensitive part, right? So anything that's happening, we want it to feel good for like the softest, most vulnerable part of us.
No, making so much sense. I'm just like, are you saying that I can find some inner part of me, whether it's my pussy or something else, and let it dom me into doing things?
Well, I would probably recommend like your pussy or your heart. I don't know if I would like choose any body part of it. Try to get one that's connected at least.
What's fascinating to me here is just because I have been in my life sometimes outward looking. I'm just like, no, would someone please tell me what to do? Right. because I don't want to take the responsibility, right? It just feels too big. Like, what if I make the wrong decision, right? And so if I can see myself as having these different parts, I'm like, oh, I can be the little girl. And then I can like look to my big part and be like, big part, what should I do? And I think that reframing is really helpful.
Yeah. 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 And it gets to be, right, like for me, pussy is very connected to heart because our cervix, the vagus nerve, goes right in connection. And yeah, like just checking in with the body. Like, how does this decision feel in my body? Is it that there is an initial contraction because of fear and then it feels expansive? Because a lot of the time, and for myself too, I'm like, is this fear or intuition? Is this fear or intuition? Is
Yes,
this like,
for sure.
how do I decode this message in my body? I'm feeling nauseous. But is this a butterfly kind of nauseous? Or is this a like, this is a dangerous thing, get away kind of nauseous, right? And so tracking, and I'm an emotional authority in human design, so any other emotional authorities out there will resonate with this, but it takes time for a decision to move through our system, and we've got to process the emotions around it to get to that clear place of calm. But noticing like just having a conversation with that sensation, and then tuning into the heart, tuning into the pussy, tuning into the mind, right? Tuning into higher self. Like what is the wisdom coming that is coming through? And then just taking your time. Like also there's no timestamp that you've got to be connected with yourself and following your desires by June 1st. So hop to, right? Like we've got like,
you'd be surprised how much I put a deadline. I'm just like, that's not true. There is a deadline. Right? Have you heard of money? So, but yeah, I get it that's something I'm inventing. Yeah. Like sort of a fake deadline that we can sometimes put. But I hear you. Yeah. Take your time. That makes sense.
Yeah. And just to relieve the pressure, right? Because sometimes we have like, for me, when I have an added pressure, then I just kind of shut down and I don't do the things. Mm-hmm. Right. But if I'm like, okay, I get to do as much as I can by this date, but it doesn't need to be perfect. I don't have an exam. I'm not going to get an A or a B, right? Coming out of med school, I'm like, but am I going to pass? It's like,
the outcome.
You are passing. You are passing. Yeah.
Yeah. This actually, it's funny. It reminds me of a woman that Janelle and I have both connected with, I think on LinkedIn and maybe potentially separately. Her name's Dana Ferrant, and I spoke with her once when we were checking in on each other occasionally a few years ago. And the first thing she asked me when I said I was feeling stuck was like, she's like, well, what does your pussy say? And she's the first person to have said that to me. I mean, it didn't make me uncomfortable. I was just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure, and it didn't go anywhere, but I think it stood out for me because I thought, oh, this is a source. There's a source of wisdom there, a voice, a part of me that maybe I want to give a say to at the table. I guess when you work with clients and they're building a relationship with themselves, what happens next? Like, what are the outcomes? What are the consequences? What is the healing, and what did that look like?
Yeah. So I love this because it's hard to track sometimes, like because clients come to me for a myriad of different things. Mostly they're highly sensitive women or gender expansive beings, and they are struggling with anxiety or some type of avoidant. I would say most people that come to me, we start working together and they're like, oh yeah, I actually am like drinking like a glass of wine every night. I'm like,
BTW.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Or I used to drink a lot and party a lot, and now I'm not anymore, but I'm still feeling like this anxiousness or like this feeling of like white knuckling my way through life. And I plugged in all of my testimonial forms, all of my feedback forms into ChatGPT the other day. Highly recommend this if you work with anybody. And it just gave such a clear reflection of the transformation. So what people walk away with after working with me is feeling more embodied, feeling safe in their body, like actually feeling safe in their body and safe to explore the emotions, the pain, and also the pleasure. Feeling like they're not scared to sit with themselves anymore. Feeling like they have more agency in their voice, feeling like they're able to communicate their needs, their desires, their boundaries, and really feeling like they've regained their power and control over the things in their life that maybe previously they were getting hijacked by their addictive part, or they were getting hijacked by their reactive part with their partner, or hijacked by their overperformance, right? They're just like, there's more spaciousness, they're more centered in their body, and then able to meet themselves.
Arianna, what do you find? No, I totally hear this echo.
Yep, there it is.
Do you hear it?
I don't hear it with me, but
okay, let me try. Arianna, what is kind of like the motivating point that you find people are at to finally reach out for help? Like what are they experiencing that they're like, okay, now I'm going to call you?
Yeah. Most often they're noticing that their emotions within emotions, that's like depression, anxiety, right? But they're feeling that is getting in the way of their business growth, of their relationship, of their job, right? Like they're noticing that, wow, I'm just like anxious all the time at work, or I'm noticing that I am feeling so many emotions and I'm just like getting stuck and feel like I can be moving further in my business or career or with my relationship, but I'm just like getting so consumed by all of this. Or they have in terms of the sobriety work, they've tried sobriety, they've maybe let go of alcohol, but they're still using cannabis, and they're noticing that it is taking up more time and space in their life than they'd like. And I had a conversation with a woman who was like, whoa, I didn't even realize that it's not even just the next day, the hangover, right? But it's like the days, the weeks, the months that adds up to, that it's just taking away from what they really want to be doing. And then with the intimacy and the pleasure work, it's really this feeling of like, whoa, I don't even know what I like. Like I worked with a woman recently who was out of a 12-year relationship and had never really explored herself and never really like said what she wanted to in the realm of intimacy. And so it was like reconnecting her to her pleasure and like owning that and owning her body and her desires and her voice and being able to speak that. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Is there anything we have, like, this has all been so good, and I'm just doing a lot of processing and like taking in. Is there anything you feel like we haven't touched on that like you'd like to talk about in terms of building a relationship with yourself?
I think the creative exploration and how creativity can be a beautiful connector to yourself, and like exploring your parts and doing, and it can be a process of doing it in a fun way that's not so like drudgy.
Yeah.
Can you give an example?
So like I write raps and I do little caricatures of the different parts of me, right? I go outside and I go on a walk and I like freestyle, and it allows me to connect to my truth. It's like, it's almost as if in the creative process, you're more connected to your subconscious. And so there's not as much of a block of like, what am I trying to hear? What am I trying to,
Yeah. I think this is absolutely true. This is part of why I loved some of, your I was immediately attracted to your energy and your Instagram posts, and because I could feel the creative energy, and that is definitely very true for me. Like when I'm dancing, when I'm creating, when I'm writing, that's when time goes fast. That's when I find the flow. That's when I'm tapping into the real me. And I can't always get there, right? The more you do it, the easier it comes, right? But if you don't do it enough, then it takes an hour to like find it and then get into it. So Arianna, if brave hearts want to tap in to themselves, to build a relationship with themselves, what's a good place for them to start? Can we give them some brave heart homework?
Yeah. So some homework, some places to start. I love to be in the practice of creativity. And creativity, you don't have to be an artist. You don't even need to feel like you've got a creative bone in your body. That can block a lot of people. But your homework is to just start letting your creative force flow. Maybe it's through drawing. Maybe it's through painting. Maybe it's through freestyling. Maybe it's through writing. And getting to know these different parts of you from a more creative lens. So if you're noticing your overachiever part, like what would she sound like? What would she look like? Can you draw a picture of her? Can you make a character of her? Right? Like, my financial warrior Franny is just so scared and she just talks like this. And right, bringing that creative force can help us meet our parts in a more compassionate way. And the next piece of homework is this notice, name, need practice, which are my 3 ends of nervous system regulation. So just noticing what part is coming up, naming it, right? Naming it, noticing where it is in the body, naming it. Is it nausea? Is it this financial warrior Franny? Is it the overachiever Olivia, right? Or is it just scared? Is it just my little fearful part, right? And then the last part is need. So offering that part what it needs, listening deeply. And it can even be as small as a hand over the belly. It could be something that you visualize in your mind of like handing this beautiful blue glowing crystal to this part of you as a symbol of safety and security, and just offering that part what it needs in some small way. And if you're struggling with needs, I love the list of needs by nonviolent communication. So that's a really good place to just look up that chart and scan it, and just because sometimes we're like, I don't even know what I need. I've never been asked what I need. I've just been so used to giving and providing. And so that's a really good place to start.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yummy. I just want to shout out to Eleanor Medina because she's the one that introduced me to you.
Shout out, Eleanor.
Yay. Arianna, if someone wants to work with you, where can they find you?
Yes. So they can find me on my website, ariannamacartneynd.com. And my name should be spelled in the show notes. And then I'm also on Instagram, dr.arianna.macartney, and reach out, send me a message. I offer free discovery calls and I'm more than happy to chat with you. And then I've got some yummy freebies. So I've got my free somatic microdosing guide that is a great place to start. And then I also have a free webinar that is all about how to stop numbing and escape overwhelm and really 10x your joy. And those are 2 free, delicious resources that you can get a more of a taste of my work. And I, invite you to dive in.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think you have lots of superpowers. Speaking of superpowers, it's very evident. Did you have any events coming up that you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so I do have I'm in the middle of relaunching my intuitive sobriety method. So I'm not sure when this is airing, but we're starting on June 3rd. So if you are in the place of wanting to let go of the numbing habits, that is the absolute best place to start. And then I also have a Sober Sassy Sunday dance party called Cherry Sunday happening June 29th in Denver. It's a space for the girls, gays, and theys. Think of Daybreaker, but not so damn early.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on Permission to be Human.
Yeah, thank you. I got so much out of this, and it felt, this is what happens whenever we interview experts, is like, I have my own lived experience, and then it gets reinforced, affirmed by experts.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's what happens.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happened to me. Like, you just put words to it, or like science behind it or something. So I really appreciate you, and also you just sharing your own story of addiction and how that was your pathway to finding yourself and your divine pussy.
Yeah.
Thanks
you for all your honesty and vulnerability, and just showing up as creative you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, Bravehearts. We love you. We'll see you next time on Permission to be Human.
Hey Bravehearts, looking for permission? Work with us. Andrea offers permission coaching, and Janelle offers erotic wellness sessions. Follow us on Instagram. Meet us in real life at Permission to be Human workshops in Denver. Subscribe to our newsletter. Do all this and more at our website, permissiontobehuman.live.